Okay, here is the Hebrew calendar website that I put together last week during the Feast of Tabernacles. It shows that we are currently on the first day of work leading up to a Sabbath that is on the dark day of the month where there's not moonlight, waiting for the next moon. Now, some don't see it this way because I believe in Israel, it's only the diaspora that's actually the 10 tribes that were gone when Joshua came into Jerusalem. They kept the Simchat Torah as a second day, where most of the modern Jews will keep it as the same day. I find it interesting because it makes it a 9-day cycle, which, if you see this calendar, doesn't work if you don't have 9 blocks. So we would be working 6 days, then having a Sabbath on the dark day where there's no moonlight, and then moving to the 8th month, which is going to start on a Saturday. So what you'll notice about this is it's Thursday. Friday's not listed, but then Saturday, Sunday. So it actually does work, flows through. And the Hebrew months shift from 30 to 29 basically always, except for leap years in some certain situations. So, and I will be adjusting this to keep up with all that. Here we see that in this 8th month we have a perfect 4 weeks and Saturday. So next month should be a really great month for all the Friday keepers because the Sabbaths of the lunar cycle line up with Friday next month, which doesn't happen that often. Maybe a 1 out of 7 chance for that to happen. So the following month after that, I'm going to start on December 1st, which is really interesting because the month actually starts like basically when a lunar month starts. And we see it's the same cycle. Now this is where the Friday keepers, the 7th day, that keep a 7-day Gregorian week and believe that same week has been kept throughout all time. The new moon day and the dark day, they don't know anything about that. They don't even really know anything about the moon because that's not part of their logic. It's just in my experience that all the ancient civilizations, including the Hebrews, this is how they track time. Mesopotamia, from the days of Noah, Babylon, that everyone was keeping time the same way. What you'll notice here is that, we ended on a Sunday, Monday, we start the next month on a Tuesday. The new moon day is like a Sabbath. It doesn't have to be, just like the dark day doesn't have to be. If other festivals or things in the month need you to use that day, you could. And even in this calendar, you could always strictly force a 6-day work week if you really felt like that was what you were supposed to do. So we come into the 11th month. So we did see that December starts on the first day and almost ends on. So that this 10th month actually is like right at New Year's. So that's pretty interesting. Here we get into the end of January, and same thing. When you look at the calendar, for people that are used to keeping a Friday, that's exactly how it feels like to people keeping the month based off the new moons to the new moons, which was God's month. If you follow me at all, in the 14th verse of the Bible, it says he created 2 lights. Well, that word for seasons is talking about the moonlight and its appointed times. David mentions it. It's pretty common knowledge, and even that word that they use for appointed times, seasons, is translated 150 times in the Old Testament to congregation. So, just ignore that. Don't pay no attention to that, they'll tell you. All right, so March 29th, we start the month of Nisan, which is the month of Passover, which became the first month since they left Egypt. And it's very similar to the 7th month, which used to be the first month. And so to me, I just feel like with all of the sincerity that, come on, we see that the month that used to be the month, they look the same. And there's probably a reason for that. And they're actually 6 months apart. Unless it's a leap year, you always count to the next one and it's going to be the same distance. So there's some kind of a cycle that God keeps in here. I've been confused about this for a long time, and I think a lot of people are confused about this. I mean, as the Son of Man was in the belly, as Jonah was in the belly of the whale, so shall the Son of Man be in the belly of the earth. 3.5 days. Now, most people don't believe that. I just find that if it says it in the scripture, unless it was added or it's not true, then it has to be true. So everything that we find in this Passover should show us that. So here, I can't seem to find an exact name for this. There must have been a name. I don't know, but this is the day that they would select the lamb or the goat, whatever them, or if their family was too small, another family would come together, and they would treat it nice. So this represents the day that Joshua or Jeshua, Jesus, came into the city riding on a donkey. Also, with a cord, had another animal attached with him. So he came in riding on a donkey, carrying a mule or something behind him, attached with a cord. That's got to be significant. There's nothing that God does that's not significant. So here we have, I show this as it breaks the Sabbath. That's the thing too. This day, which maybe isn't, I have it white here and I break the Sabbath, but that's not probably a tradition back then. I don't know if they really did that. And they probably worked until the evening time on the 14th. So in that sense, they would have had their 6 work days. And they probably would have always had their 6 work days in the Sabbath. The same thing goes for the Feast of First Fruits. It breaks that Sabbath. So even if they did work on the 10th, the next week, Passover, the Feast of First Fruits, it's going to break their Sabbath. So that's what I find very interesting, is that, and most of the people that keep Friday or a 7th day, they don't work 6 days. And that's another part of the Sabbath. I mean, if you're not working 6 days and resting the 7th, you're not even keeping the Sabbath. It doesn't matter if 1 million people do it with you. So, I mean, it's very interesting. I wouldn't even have found any of this knowledge myself if I didn't find a friend when I was 19 out there just like trying to do my own thing ministry-wise. And I found a buddy that I believe a lot alike, and he keeps every Friday and has for over 20 years. And that opened my eyes to this concept, and I really wanted to do more research. And this is what all that research has led me to. And for years I've wondered about this. So he came in riding on this donkey. The people, and for Passover, would bring the animal in. They'd treat it nice, feed it nice. They'd be nice to it. But then on the evening, they would have a meal. They would kill it. So they did the same thing to Jeshua, to Jesus. Outside the city limits, they took him out there. They killed him. And they even was like, get him down, because we don't want him hanging there all Passover and well into the Feast of Unleavened Bread. They how blind were they? It's insane. Like, they had to know what they were doing. But yet, I mean, they did it. They had to do it for us. I mean, people that, like, there's really a weird spirit or something right now where people are, like, against the Israelites. And, I can get that, because I will be the first one to tell you that the modern day Israel becomes the 8th head. That's not something that I probably would have even quite understood, but that's just the truth of the matter. So, but no one's going to stop that. Israel's becoming a superpower. None of us will stop that. So being against them is silly. And being against them makes you an enemy of the coming superpower. It's just not smart. I mean, Satan's going to be in there for 42 months. 42 of these. Don't we believe that? We're just like, come on, Jesus, come. Don't you know a fake one's coming first? We all know that. So you're really saying, come fake Jesus, come now. When you say come. Because the faster the real one gets here, the fake one's coming. Everybody gets that, I think. Anyway, to follow this along, we see that he was killed on the 14th. So then the next day, that's one day, that's Passover. The next day, First of Fruits, you had to sacrifice an animal in fire. This is a command to Israel. So that's 1, 2. And then here is the first day of the Omer. So this is the 3rd day. And doesn't it say he was rose on the 3rd day? And this is when you count the Omer. So it's very interesting. Now, again, the Feast of Unleavened Bread tells us that we have to, on the 7th day of it, have a Sabbath. So normally, we would start our count over working 1 day, working 2 days, working 3 days, working 4 days, working 5 days. We'd still have 2 days to go before we could Sabbath. right? 6, here we be Sabbathing. But the command for the Passover, the unleavened bread, tells us Sabbath. Well, that actually is a Sabbath. If you were keeping Sabbaths like these people were every month, you would know that's a Sabbath. Then you work 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is one of the times you have a Sabbath. You're also counting the Omers. Every day you're counting the Omers. So this is the first Sabbath is actually on the 6th Omer. The second Sabbath is on the 13th Omer. Then you have the dark day. This is something people, if you don't have this in your calendar, if you're not doing 30 and 29 day months, this whole thing that I'm showing you, you'll never see it. It's not for you. You couldn't find it. Now you have liar or IR, or sometimes there's 2 Y's, sometimes it starts with an I. It's just, this seems to be the most common. It starts on Monday, April 28th, 2025, and it's exactly, again, but look, we're counting the Omer. So the first day, the new moon day, Omer 15. Then we have 4 weeks, exactly we end up in Omer 43. Because we're told to count the Omer. That at the end of the Omer, there's a Sabbath, and then there's a Pentecost day the next day. So just like we started this cycle up here with 2 Sabbaths, and then counting the Omer, we're going to end it the same way. That's Scripture. So we come down here, 3-7, 4-7, 5-7, 6-7. We get to the next month, Sivan, or however you say that. It's Omer 44. Then we work 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do we notice? It's another 5-day work week surrounded by 2 Sabbaths. Now, come on. Does anybody see that? Who knows that? So when we get to the evening of 49, Sabbath time. We did our duty, so we should be Sabbathing. So we Sabbath, 7-7. That's Omer 50 at evening, so the next day is Pentecost. You're not even going to know this day. And I'm loving to find out the 40 days in here for Moses, for Yeshua, for Jesus. They fit in this schedule. I'm sure they do. They're in the Bible outlined. The Lord can show us anything. And so here it just goes through the same cycle. These are the days. You'll notice that all through this system, it just lines right back up. Here, Tashir, again, however you say that, I'm not even sure. I'm very unlearned about things, so people don't want to listen. But here it is in black and white. You can't really argue with this. It's just facts. This looks almost exactly the same, except for here, I've got Simchat Torah, where this is where I was saying that they didn't always feast the next day as well. So that's interesting. There's a lot of patterns that are the same. Here I've got the whole week as no work. I don't even know if that's necessarily true. I don't know if you're going to find Bible verses that are telling you not to work. Although people would travel. So how much work are you really, if you paint people's houses, which in God's kingdom, I doubt you would paint houses. Because the scripture says in the new world that they're going to plant their own food and they're going to build their own house. So maybe there'd be a neighborhood house painter, or maybe you just paint your own house. I don't know. But regardless, if you're going to travel to go set up tents and live somewhere else with the Hebrews for a week, you're probably not working. So I whited all those out because it just makes sense. Again, we see this 9-day pattern, this 8-day pattern. Buddy sent me a YouTube video about it being like a sandwich, the 2 Sabbaths and then 6 days in between. That's like a sandwich, and he was making a point that it's the guy in the video that, God invites us to his table, which is a very good point. That was smart. Anyway, I just wanted to walk you through this just to see how it's pretty cool. It doesn't fail. So that's the cool thing about it. It's basically math made by the Creator, and there's scripture about it. How else would I find it?